Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 396 of the Assorted Calibers podcast, the second minute podcast. It's a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and tonight I am joined by the greatest hostess in the known universe, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
I don't wanna. Just in general, don't wanna.
Well, then go take a nap, and then we'll fire the missiles.
I mean, it's nothing about the show. It's just the combination of it seems like there's so much awful in the world and it's not getting better and it is getting worse. And there's stuff medically going on with my mom that she doesn't understand. I don't understand. I've made a joke that I don't like it when she acts her age. Mm-hmm. 'Cause you're saying, like I've said this before?
You said this last week, yes.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we still don't understand why she's weak, why she's got that palsy-like shake in her left hand. And, it's not that I don't... Well, okay, I kind of mind doing the whole walk by myself, but I can do it. Most days, until it doesn't give me a problem. But... she feels bad about not being able to help, and so it's just, I don't know what's going on, and things continue to get worse in the world, and, how's that line go from Red October? This business will get out of control. It'll get out of control, and we'll be lucky to live through it. And I feel like that describes basically everything in the world today, from micro to macro. So, that's how I'm doing. And how are you, Weirdington?
Well, that was delightfully uplifting, Aaron. But look, I can't fault you.
Our listeners know what they're getting into here, okay? I mean, I'm not the cheerful Muppet. That's you.
That's me. I've just been, busy. It's one of those, I don't even have that much to show for it either. It just seems like everything's taken for since the last time we've talked, taken twice the length of time that I thought it would, and or when I get a spare moment of time, something pops up that we need to do that's going to soak up the remainder of the time. And so, I was hoping to cut a blooper reel today. That didn't happen. Instead, I was scrambling to finish the show notes just before we started recording, and that has been my week. And I guess I'll dive into the news story because it kind of ties into this. Is evidently we had a meteor almost hit Massachusetts. That's kind of wild.
Was it on the approved roster?
No. Nope. That would definitely be the if the meteor had hit Massachusetts, it would have immediately been arrested and then let go on parole. But yeah, and people were asking me, did you hear it? And I realized, I'm like, oh, what time was it? They said it's around 2:11 was, I think, the time given. And oh yeah, no, my daughter needed to go buy some stuff at the store, so we were shopping. And so we were in Marshall's department store for those that are in the New England area. They will know Marshall's and know it well. It's actually part of the TJ Maxx family, so everyone's got TJ Maxx. But yeah, so my daughter was just going, and I'm just like, look, I've looked at all the sections that I like, which is the cooking section. And my daughter was still going, looking for the clothing that she needed. And I just said, see those display chairs over there? I'm going to be sitting in the most comfortable one. Come get me when you're ready. And at some point, while I was sitting in the chair playing Subway Surfer, the meteor broke atmosphere and evidently made a very loud sonic boom that I did not hear.
So you'll play Subway Surfer, but not Alien Isolation
Oh, shoot, I haven't played that yet.
No?
That is true. I do need to play that. I need to see how it works on as a mobile game.
I mean, it's funny because you said you wouldn't play it on your computer, but if you could play it on your phone, and I showed you the mobile game and you bought it, and now you weren't playing it on mobile either.
Well, yeah. The idea is I've got the games that I'm already playing and already committed to, and most of them have like the daily goals that you need to meet, which is massive for my ADD brain dopamine hits. And so it's one of those, I know what I'm missing on those ones, and I haven't opened that one yet. So it's not calling to me. So I should crack it, and I will try to do it before the next show. But I wanted to put that in there. Just, it was an interesting story, but it's not a particularly ACP story, but I did pop into my head on such a loud boom might have set up the ShotSpotter technology, except for we don't really have it anymore. I don't know if Boston's still using it, but very recently, the city of Cambridge dismantled their ShotSpotter system. You can go read the article in the show notes. There's a number of partisan stuff of which we're not diving into. One of the people said like, oh, it could be used by ICE. I have no idea how to use it by ICE, and ACP does not take a particular position on ICE and how ICE is being handled. So I
think it might have to do with the fact that certain ethnicities, when they celebrate, they set off fireworks or otherwise have loud noises. That's what I got from the article. I'm not just pulling that out to be racist or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that the belief is that ICE could go looking and, oh, look, there's this cluster here, and maybe it's people celebrating a quinceañera, and they would go and investigate. I think.
Again, don't care because the key factor is that was all just additional talking points that might convince the council. But the key factor is that it is wildly inaccurate and just not a great technology whatsoever. And the fact that
like years ago, I seem to recall that we did a segment on just how inaccurate ShotSpotter was. And was this about the same time that we were running Chipman Watch?
We may have. I don't think I timed something up nearly as much as you, but I think I did do a Weer'd Audio Fisk with talking about ShotSpotter, or we definitely covered it a number of times because, it's a great point to get into it, is that ShotSpotter and the anti-gun groups are really hand in glove. And the one of the big connectors is that David Chipman, the former ATF agent, and as far as I still know, still an employee of the Giffords anti-gun group, and who was one of Biden's nominees for Attorney General, or not Attorney, ATF director, and but he was a really terrible person, and because of all of that stuff, and the fact that like, all right, we're not even pretending anymore that we're going to be all objective to gun owners, by putting this, anti-gun shill in the position. So, he didn't get confirmed. And instead that was Steve Beeplesneets that got that got it, who was only partially connected to being an anti-gun shill. But but overall, it's one of those. It is what we've said. It is wildly inaccurate, and it seems like and also extremely expensive. Though it says here that it was being supplied by grants, Homeland Security, though I gotta wonder if the Trump administration is kind of going, why are we giving these people grants for crap that doesn't work? That actually, when I was searching up this story, because I had read about it, I think when I was up in New Hampshire or someplace, but and I was just like, oh yeah, no, I remember that. Let me grab that story. I got this article on the Mayor Brandon Johnson keeps trying to convince Chicagoans they're wrong. They're wrong to want ShotSpotter back. And one of the things that it notes was that when ShotSpotter was dismantled, the 911 times got lowered. And that was one of the arguments for it, is that, it'll get 911 responses faster because police will already be headed towards the gunshots when ShotSpotter hears it, and then the 911 call will just solidify it. But in fact, no, most of the time they get sent to a location and find nothing. And because it was an alleged gunshot, they start having to question people, ask around, figure out what's going on, look for gun, look for, bullet casings and signs of it. And it could have been a car backfire or somebody dropping something or a firework going off. And so meanwhile, somebody is actually calling 911 because they're in trouble and the police are busy doing other things. So overall, it's just a terrible technology. It's never worked. It's never been good. We had a massive, I believe it was drug-related murder in Boston a number of years ago, and ShotSpotter didn't even tip off these 4 people getting gunned down in the street, and instead it was the 911 of the people seeing murders actively happening out their front doors. So
yeah, that was actually something in this article about how the shooting that we talked about, I think last week, happened outside of the ShotSpotter envelope or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. City officials said that the shooting occurred outside ShotSpotter's range and the network didn't notify police of the attack. Yeah, good technology, that.
I just got to look up, but I thought Memorial Drive. Yeah. Memorial Drive. It runs along the Charles River, which in most places separates Cambridge from Boston. But it's one of those but as most cities go that are built on a water source, they're extremely dense close to the water. So whether that be the coast or a river. And so it's one of those, Memorial Drive is a very, very urban road. And so the fact that ShotSpotter wasn't able to find it, or it could also be because it's right on the river and therefore it's the border between that and Boston. It may have been that ShotSpotter could hear it, but only from one direction. So therefore it could only get essentially a vector, but not an actual pinpoint. But either way, it's bad technology. I'm glad it's gone because it's, costing taxpayers and all that a ton of money. And then on top of that, the anti-gun groups were absolutely totally in bed with this group. And so having it fail just makes me happy for all the petty reasons and also all the good reasons. And then, Aaron, did you get a chance to read this next one, this essentially editorial from Giffords?
Yeah, I read it.
I found this absolutely hilarious. I had originally found it through a pro-gun group who was really making brutal fun of them, and they deserve it. But I just said, you know what? Let me read the actual thing instead of just the quotes from this article. And I'm just like, you know what? This doesn't need any additional commentary. It stands on its own 2 feet, and it's one of those why would you even write this, Giffords? What a waste of time. Or maybe is your base so hungry for morale that you had to write this? But essentially, the discussion is about how Senator John Cornyn has been off-seated in the Republican primary by Ken Paxton, and then also Tom Massey, who is a huge friend of the Second Amendment, was also off-seated in his primary, and they're somehow claiming that this is a victory for gun control when there is, first up that Cornyn actually did break with Republicans on the Bipartisan Safer Community Act and crossed the aisle and voted for the gun control, much like now former Representative Tony Gonzalez, and so it's one of those. I see the fact that this guy got primaried as overall a sign that Texans are actually taking gun control very serious. But they are somehow claiming that I can't even make heads or tails of it, actually, on how they're trying to get the logic on that. I get the Tom Massey thing, though. I don't know that much about the new Republican nominee. Even I can't even remember his name off the top of my head. But I don't know how he stands on the Second Amendment. But it's one of those, like, unless he's a, much more anti-gun Republican and won out, this doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means.
Yeah, it seems a lot of, well, it's more intelligible than word salad, but I guess to use your own terminology, it really sounds like Giffords is huffing its own farts.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, what it reminds me of is if you've ever had the misfortune of being around somebody who's in the midst of a manic episode from any number of mental illnesses that cause such states, this is what it seems like. It seems like they are very, very excited about something, and they're trying to explain why they're excited about it. And the more they explain it to you, the less sense it makes.
Yeah, that's a better description of what's going on. Yeah.
And of course they end with a whole series of some sort of voter exits. They don't link where these numbers are coming from, but are saying like, let's see, 9 in 10 GOP respondents favor, including juvenile criminal history and mental health record background checks for gun purchase under 21, which is the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that expanded background check for under 21 gun buyers, which I believe Trump suspended. 86% support making gun trafficking and straw purchasing federal crimes punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Yeah.
Well, they already are federal crimes, although I don't know the sentencing on them.
Yeah. But it's one of those like, okay, yeah, no, like that's kind of your propaganda that Second Amendment people are actually in favor of gun crime. Let's see. 80% support blocking unmarried domestic abusers from owning guns. That one is one of those, maybe that actually might be true. That, of course, is the, domestic violence prohibited person statement, which.
Yeah, isn't that the Lautenberg Amendment?
Yes. And, though I think the unmarried one is, that may or may not be, that they keep trying to get that in. Originally it was specifically, it needed to be spousal abuse. But I think it actually got upgraded to so long as you're cohabitating and you're abusing them. But again, the point that I'm making is it's one of those like, it is in no point in time is it good for one person to harm another one. But I do find it a bit more troubling when someone physically harms somebody that is a complete stranger to them versus somebody who is a domestic partner, only because sometimes living in the same house or with somebody can fan the flames. Again, not that I condone any such thing, but the idea that, if you had done this to a total stranger, it would be fine. but because this was an intimate partner, now you can never own a gun ever again. It's a lot of these statements are very similar to how we've seen in the past on gun owners strongly support universal background checks, which is, of course, also bans on private sales. Every gun sale needs to go through an FFL of some sort. And it's one of those, the poll's really, really, really high, depending on how the question is answered. And then it comes up for a referendum. And if it passes with just a handful of points. And this, similarly, it often can go down by a handful or even sometimes a large number of points, and states that, no, your polling is not necessarily accurate. So it looks like Oddball has invited his friend, the Mystery Knife Reviewer, back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, and he has a segment he calls Project Turd Polish.
Hello and welcome to Oddball's Corner Pocket. Again, I am not Oddball, but I am in fact his friend, the Mystery Knife Reviewer. So the last time I was on this show, I was mentioning about how I had got my daughter a cheap knockoff of the Reate EXO gravity knife. And I thought, how nice could I make this? I might have even mentioned it in the segment. So I ended up picking one up for myself, also so I wouldn't take my daughters away. And I started experimenting. Obviously, the first thing to do out of the box is give it a quick touch-up on a knife stone, and it doesn't take much to get it very, very sharp. And I will further say that I have been every day carrying this knife pretty regularly since I got it, for reasons I will explain in the episode. But I have found that the more you carry it, the more you use it, and as a general rule, knives that are heavily used go dull faster. And this one I've had to resharpen it a few times, but really it hasn't been that bad, which implies that the D2 marking on the blade may actually not be fictitious, and it may actually be a halfway decent steel. So the second step was then to apply lubrication to the track that the knife runs on. I first started with some simple gun oil, and immediately you get a better result. I later tried a gun grease, and while I found that worked well, it must have picked up some pocket lint or something, because it started getting slow, and once I cleaned it off, it started working faster again. And then, so I've actually been working on using lighter grease and all that, and just making sure to keep the rails nice and clean. Now, the third step is to carry it every day. The trick being that the more you use it, the more the surfaces are going to bear in. This is very similar to, especially for those that may like 1911 or other older pistols that have used full-length rails, where some people will talk about the gun needing a break-in period. And ideally, obviously, there's been some speculation that some of the break-in periods suggested by some companies, I won't name them, are really just an excuse for shoddy manufacturing. But the idea is that you shoot the gun, say put roughly 200 rounds through it, and then clean it really, really well. And the idea being that the clean and lubricated surfaces will rub against each other, and the high points will get worn down on both, and you'll get a higher degree of polish. And then when you clean it off, it will remove any grit or debris that may have been knocked off by that. It's essentially, you're using the gun to machine itself. Well, I've been doing the same thing here. And after you use it, a few hundred times, it does smooth out quite a bit. And I believe the lubrication may also aid in that a little bit by giving a medium to remove bits and pieces. Now that's all I've done for mine. And when I pull out my Reate out of the knife drawer, it's just still infinitely better. Like you can't really beat that high level of machining. But between, $200 some and $30, you know what? That's a pretty nice difference. And so, you can overlook some sins. And so another option could be, if I wanted to dive a little bit deeper, is getting my hands on a lapping compound and applying that to the knife and then using it quite a bit and use that more of abrasive compound to see if I could remove just a small amount. Obviously, you don't want to over machine. So if I was to take a Dremel to either the rails or the lugs on the blade as a means to relieve the tolerances just a little bit, it would be, if you do too much, you're officially in a completely different territory. So be very, very, very careful. Further, actually using something that's very, very light, like a piece of emery cloth or something, to polish up the bearing surfaces. The closer you can get to a mirror finish, the better. Very similar to when you're sharpening a knife. If you can make that cutting blade edge mirror finish, it's going to slide through what you're cutting so much better. So yeah, I just thought I'd point out the fact that, I've been calling this Project Turd Polish because it's a cheap knockoff knife, though again, it's a pretty good knife from the beginning. The amount of machining tolerances going through, and that's why it's a cheap knockoff, but it's $30. So $30 is generally starting to get into nice knife territory, while this one is a cheap knife copying a very, very expensive knife. So overall, is it worth it? Yes. Especially if you are curious to see what a gravity knife might be like. And again, it's a decent blade. It's just not as smooth in operation. So if you're looking for ultimate smoothness and you want something that just absolutely just flicks out like it's an expensive out the front knife, but at a fraction of the cost, sure. But if you want something that's just, that looks like a cool design, I want to give that a try, and it also happens to be a pretty nice cutting edge, by all means, go with this. So again, links are in the show notes, and hopefully this will be helpful to many of you. So thank you so much, and thank you, Oddball, for letting me use Oddball's Corner Pocket.
You know, Aaron, this seems like a really fun project because, you know what? I bought the exact same gravity knife after I heard his review.
Wow, what a coincidence. Who would have thought? I certainly didn't see that coming.
And those who listen to the blooper reel, depending on when this one comes out, I'm just so in love with these gravity knives that I got Xander one for his birthday.
Well, I think we can count the Mora that I got him an early birthday present.
Yes. We'll use it to open up mine.
Yeah. Look, man, I got nothing. It was a knife review. It's cool. I don't have the knife. I don't know really much about it. It's intriguing. I might at some point get it. I might not. I don't know. I think we all know who the mystery reviewer is, but since you want to continue with this, okay. I don't know where you want me to go with this, other than pivot to David.
Well, I will just say one final note. Oddball wanted to let me to let us all know that Knife Rights is having their Ultimate Steel. It's a knife contest, I guess, or I'm not exactly sure what you call it, but essentially you can donate to Knife Rights, and they have a number of tiers where with your donation, various companies have donated equipment for that, like all the way up to some pretty fancy ones, such as like they got like a Sig Sauer P211. Which is their double stack 1911. That's actually a pretty neat gun, and other stuff with that also comes with a matching knife. So yeah, if you want to support Knife Rights, which are indeed Second Amendment rights, go ahead and click over on the show notes and consider giving them a donation.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a raffle where every donation you get an entry, and at least that's what it sounds like to me.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, no, it's a raffle. That's it. That is exactly it. And so, oh look, they got one of the mini 14s with the folding stock, so you could do your little A-Team cosplay. You want to.
So fun fact, when I watched A-Team when it came out, yes, I am that old, I didn't know a whole lot about guns. I didn't realize they were shooting Ruger Mini 14s. I honestly thought they were shooting AK-47s because they kind of look the same. It was like, I knew what M16s looked like, and it didn't look like it. And the Mini 14 has wood furniture, and the AK has wood furniture, and it's got, a big mag up in front rather than one going up into the mag well. It wasn't curved, but maybe it was a shorter magazine. And so when I noticed this, and please keep in mind, I was like 6th grade or something. I looked at my dad, and by the way, my dad didn't twig that they were Rugers either. I asked him, Dad, the A-Team shoots AK-47s. Are they communists? And so my dad said, well, if they shot Uzis, would they be Israeli? And I went, no. And so, well, okay then. I don't know. I thought you might find it adorable, Weer'd, but I guess not.
No, that is good. Also, again, they shot the Mini 14s with the side folding stock, which looks actually is a lot closer to the AKs that have either the side folding or the under folding stocks. So
yeah.
I could totally see that. And actually, one thing I was thinking about is exactly that was I could have sworn that the firearm that was stolen from the police holster at the end of Fight Club, that is actually one of the first things you see in the movie. I thought for sure that was a 1911. Mostly because I had shot my first 1911 not too long after I saw Fight Club for the first time, and so I had 1911 on the brain, and it looked 1911 enough. And I was thinking about that when my wife and I were watching it in the theater again 25 years later on that's clearly a Smith & Wesson 4506, but I knew nothing of at the time.
Well, Weer'd, that's just inexcusable.
It is inexcusable. I apologize, and I will flog myself in penance.
50 lashes with the wet noodle.
Yes.
The springening persists, and so does David.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. Recently, I've been talking about the spring-related topic of gardening. In this segment, I'm going in a different direction and moving away from the spring that falls between winter and summer, and talk about the one that goes in mechanical objects, metal springs. Other than perhaps the standardized machine-cut screw, very few objects are as essential to our technological civilization as springs. They're found in nearly every mechanical device and are a constant challenge to the 3D print design community. Springs push, pull, restrain, and actuate movement, all based on how they're designed and employed. They come in two main types, the older flat spring and the relatively more modern coil spring. Flat springs are simple-appearing strips of metal that are resistant to flexing. When displaced from that geometry, they work to return to their original position. Classic examples are firearm mainsprings, such as the single-leg version in Smith & Wesson revolvers and the V-style in traditional Colt revolver. The 3-tined Sear spring in 1911-style pistols is another variation. Coil springs are lengths of wire turned on a mandrel. They can act either from expansion or from compression, meaning their rest position is either expanded until compressed by another force, or compressed until released. Two examples of this are the spring that retains the firing pin in the 1911 style pistol, resisting forward motion until overcome by impact of the hammer, or the spring in a striker-fired pistol that is under compression until released to drive the striker forward. The specifications and construction methods of both these types of springs, as well as all others, are usually quite precise. With flat springs, the steel specifications, shape, polish, and heat treating are all essential for a spring that performs properly within its intended force envelope. For coil springs, the wire type and diameter, number of coils per inch, inner and outer diameter of the coil, and coil spacing are equally important. While both of these types of springs can be made by the home hobbyist, coil spring production is considerably easier. Safety warning. Making springs deals with working metal. This can involve heat, grinders, other power tools, and a variety of physical risks. Please take proper precautions and wear all appropriate PPE during this process. To make flat springs, the first requirement is finding the right quality steel stock. Once the rough shape is cut from the blank, it's trimmed, cleaned up, polished some more, and finally heat treated. Then often polished again. The polishing step is extremely important and special care must be taken. Polishing tends to leave small scratches in the metal. These need to be oriented the length of the spring. Otherwise, they can cause stress risers during flexing and lead to premature cracking. Heat treating of flat springs is a level of sorcery I am not familiar enough with to go into detail. Suffice it to say, many of my older gunsmithing books talk about the failure to success ratio and the large number of springs that broke in testing. Maybe one of our other contributors or listeners can submit a segment on heat treating of metal. As I mentioned earlier, coil springs, compared to flat springs, are easier for the individual to make in their workshop. Spring wire of various gauges is readily available and reasonably affordable. The complicated part is calculating the spring dimensions with proper diameter spacing and turns per inch, then making a mandrel to match those values. Thankfully, spring dimension calculations have been worked out in great detail and resources are available both online and off to determine what's needed for a specific spring design. Some people have used machine-threaded bolts for a properly dimensioned mandrel, others use the threading controls on a small lathe. There are even 3D printed spring makers on sites like Thingiverse and Printables. Once the wire and mandrel are required, it's simply a matter of turning the one onto the other while maintaining consistent proper tension. Within a few minutes, a new spring will be born. All that's left at that point is to trim the ends and possibly grind them flat. Then test the new spring in the mechanism. Springs don't require much care beyond keeping them clean and rust-free. Contrary to popular belief, springs are not worn from constant compression, but from cycles. For example, a loaded magazine could be put aside in a climate-controlled environment for a decade, and the spring will be just as good as when it was loaded. On the other hand, a magazine that's loaded and unloaded twice a week might start to lose some spring back after only a few months. This is due to what's called work hardening. This concept is easy to demonstrate with a paper clip. Take one and straighten one of the legs, then bend it back and forth several times. In a relatively few number of cycles, the clip will break. The same thing is happening to firearm springs on a slower basis due to the higher quality of materials. Way back in episode 45, I talked about some malfunctions that could be traced back to spring issues, and in episodes 86 and 87, I discussed magazines, including their springs in more detail. For those who don't want to make their own springs, there are many commercial resources, from specialty springs available from companies like Brownells or Wolff Gunsprings, to the nearly infinite variety from places like McMaster Carr. Regardless of which option is chosen, there's a spring for every season. Have fun and stay on the bounce.
What walks downstairs alone or in pairs and makes a slinkety sound? A spring, a marvelous thing. Everyone knows it's Slinky.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments, or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brena Bock and David Bock. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
But David, you didn't mention the hammer spring.
He didn't. I actually went and re-listened to the part where he was talking about the striker spring and the spring that actuates the hammer, and I'm like, did he do it? I would feel ashamed if I mentioned the fact that he didn't do it, and I just missed it. No, I did not miss it. And
I was listening for it too.
And in fact, it made it worse because instead of me listening to it once and groaning, I listened to like that one section 3 times.
He's angered you.
He really did. He really, really did. But now he has a segment on springs, a spring, and it is on springs. What we thought it was going to be in the first one. And I think I'm also surprised because David suffers from the same affliction, which is it's kind of a spring law where when you're working on a gun and a spring just flies off into oblivion and you look everywhere and you just you can't find it and go, well, screw it. It's a couple of bucks. So you go to your favorite online ordering thing and you order a replacement spring. And the moment you get the confirmation email that says that your order has been shipped, you will find that spring. And not only will you find that spring, you will find that spring in a place that you swore you looked very, very closely for.
Confirmation? You'll find it in the edit.
Did I really? I'm leaving it in. But Aaron, do you know who can speak English properly?
I am certain our listeners are better at English than you are.
Our listeners! Thanks to each and every one of you fine listeners. We really appreciate the support you give us. And I'm glad you're enjoying it. But we have to give a very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To go to Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers Podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast plus bonus content like the ACB blooper reels, the ACB films tracks, and the ACB Magnum.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I get a blog. It's weerdworld.com. That's weerdworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And I'm just kind of around these days.
Cool. And thanks to Nate Spencer.
It feels very strange to constantly mention the Linktree when, as a result of this weird funk, I haven't been blogging. I'm not super active on Facebook. It feels very performative and fake, and so it's just, I'm here.
And we love you, Aaron. And we also love Nate Spencer, and we love his music.
So if we were toys, I would be just a cute little plushie that you cuddle and makes you feel good and safe. And Weer'd would be a Slinky because he's entertaining when he falls downstairs. Our playstyles are assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
I wish that wasn't true. Good night.